Hey guys, this is Tony with Team Extra. Today we're going to go over some Ryzeal combos, some tips, some tricks, some techs, some stuff to help you do better at your next locals or regionals. Let's get into it.
Woo!
So obviously the mandatory stuff here is your 3 bonfires, searches the best cards, searches your ice, and it searches your X. These cards have to play them. I've seen people cutting down smaller packages for budget. That's fine. I know the deck's expensive. I get it. I've seen people play 3-1-1-1. Whatever it takes, just to get your foot in the door. But if you're playing the deck competitively, you're going to a regionals, you really want to max out on Sword, X, Ice. X and Ice being your best starters, Sword being your backup, and then Bonfire searching your best. You also have your one-ofs. All this stuff is pretty standard. Some people choose not to play the trap, but I like the trap. The trap gives you a lot of versatility on your opponent's turn. Opening it is not too bad. Pop some cards. Your opponent's not expecting it. Stuff's all pretty standard. The juicy stuff that I'd like to talk about is Desires. Don't play Small World. Small World sucks. You ever get asked on Small World, you'll never play it again. Desires is the way. 2 of them. 2, not 3. 2. 2 Desires is enough. This deck, you draw 1,000,000 cards on your turn. You don't need more than 2 Desires, please. The rest of your main deck is like cross out, called by, and then whatever you feel is necessary. It's all meta calls. I will say I do like the Mulch Armies in this deck. I need to pick up 3 Perulia for my next event, but they come up. They're level 4. It does come up. Normal summon a Mulch Army, get a level 4 on the board, turns on a lot of your plays in the deck. I know these cards, again, they're expensive. Nobody wants to shell out $100 for a Fuwalas, but it definitely does help. Having level 4 hand traps comes up. As dumb as that sounds. Talents going second is crazy. Everybody's going to hand trap duo drive. This card allows you to either rip cards out of their hand, take whatever they have, what have you. Thrust is fine. I play the 1 of Thrust instead of the second talents for the cross out. I like the 1-in-1 just for cross out coverage. Out of the side though, I am playing more. Out of the side, I like playing 3 Judgments. Always comes in going first because Fuwalas is dead going first. You have to have something that can consistently come in every game. Whether it be Judgment, Strike, you want to play whatever. You have to have something that you're consistently siding in going first over Fuwalas. You can't play it going first. You don't want to see it game 2, game 3. Going first, it's just dead. You'd rather see anything else. My side deck is kind of a mess right now. I was experimenting with trap tricks. Now I'm back to playing Thrust package. We'll see what I land on. I'm probably going to play this at locals this week just to see how it goes. Thrust finds you all your god cards. Your Duster, your Barrier. I opted to play Daruma Cannon for some generic coverage. And then Sanctum into Lancea. Very good. Very hard for your opponent to interact with Sanctum. They could try and pop it preemptively. You're just going to eat a card off the board. The sauce is Featherstorm. If you open Ice or X plus an extender, you can end on your regular board plus Castel. Set Featherstorm, search Featherstorm off of Thrust. However you do it, this card is just bananas right now. It just turn skip against everybody except for maybe Labyrinth. And you wouldn't side this in against Labyrinth anyway. I see people playing multiple Mirrorlogic Aggregator. I've never had a situation where more than one comes up. I'd much rather have the flexibility to make Typhon or Zeus on my opponent's turn. Typically, these are one of the cards that you'll cut for the second Mirrorlogic Aggregator. Sure, Zeus doesn't come up a ton, but I can't imagine that it comes up any less than second copy of Aggregator. Just because once you get the first one in rotation, you're constantly reattaching it over and over again. I've had it bestialed once or twice, but if your opponent is bestialing Meteorologic Aggregator, you're probably winning that game anyway. It's a terrible bestial target. 2 duo, obviously pretty standard. I've considered trying to play 1. I know this is typically the first play you make. Going first is duo drive. I've been trying to take a different approach to my games and only making duo drive when I can guarantee it resolves. It just feels like a waste going into duo drive knowing that it's going to eat a Veiler, an Imperm, an Ash, an Ogre. I'd much rather end on Detonator Pass and grind my opponent's resources down and then use duo drive to lock the game up. So I've considered cutting this to 1 and playing 3 Detonator. But I haven't yet. We'll see. I may test it this weekend to see if the second duo comes up. It does come up occasionally where people will Mourner this on summon, and then you can make the second one and resolve its effect. But I just haven't seen enough people on Mourner to justify that line of thinking as a way to play the 1 over 2 or 2 over 1. Donner. Always outs, nib token, anything funky your opponent gives you that's not a level or rank 4. Card is mandatory. You can play Haggard Lizardos, but I wouldn't. I think Lizardos requires 2 effect monsters, or 2 monsters with different names, 2 monsters with different attributes. Donner just requires 2 monsters with different types. You don't play any rocks.
Names.
Lizardos. 2 monsters with different names, so theoretically they're the same, but Donner removes, so you can make out of the token and then remove something off of your opponent's board. Dugares, crazy. The OTK line is Dugares and Utopic Ray Lance. You make Dugares, make Utopic Ray Lance over a Spent Xyz. Dugares detached to double his attack. Swing. Detach, swing again, he's 5k, he's huge. Comes up against Tempai as well, negates their face or their attack position monsters. If anybody's still playing that deck, I know I've seen some floating around still. Talked about Castel. Not as good as the Light Dragon Agnister. I would not play this card solely over Light Dragon Agnister unless you are playing the Featherstorm. This is the only reason I'm on Castel. The Light Dragon Agnister just allows you to out more stuff. You protect. Tornado Dragon for dumb stum decks. Abyss Dweller for all Fiendsmith variants. This card is just the FTK against Fiendsmith Cash. They're just left with their cash stuff for 2 turns. And then these cards, I would say, are the only rank 4 toolbox cards that are required. Exciton Knight and Maguska win games by themselves. Most people just forget that Exciton Knight's a card. You make it, and they're like, can I read that? And they read it, and they go, think. This card's just going to nuke the whole board. You don't have to, because you're always 2 for 1ing into Exceeds monsters. Typically, you're never in a position where you can't resolve Exciton Knight, because it's not... You only have to be down 1 card from your opponent and hand it on field. Most decks you're playing against are going wide. They're setting up these large boards. You play through a bunch of their interaction, and then you make Exciton Knight, nuke the board. They're not coming back from that. Baguska going first against most decks, except for Malice. Malice has weird lines into this card, but they do play. I guess you could say that against about any Link deck. But, you know, your rogue matchups... You play against, you know, if your locals has heroes or, you know, people still trying to play Tenpai. I mean, Baguska in defense is the FTK against a lot of decks. Out of these, I know there's some other options that people play. Like I had mentioned, the Light Dragon Agnister is interesting. You know, Cowboy for game, ha ha ha, I'm Triff Gaming, he's my ace monster, but I don't think it's necessary. This deck is very feast or famine. Your duo drive is either going to resolve or it's not, and you're either going to win the game or you're not. Your games shouldn't be going into time unless you're intentionally taking your opponent into time to resolve Cowboy, but I won't tell if you don't tell. But I would definitely say that for the toolbox, these are the cards you should be playing. Other decks I've seen, like I said, I was experimenting with Trap Tricks out of the side deck. I had seen Triff Gaming testing that on Dueling Book. I really liked the versatility of it, especially for Daruma. I think Daruma is crazy this format. Daruma Karma Cannon just flips your opponent's board face down better if they end on Link Monsters or any asshole that's unaffected. It just sends them by game mechanic. Anything that's left faced up, your opponent has to send. This card will just eat entire boards for no reason. Another reason why I like the Trap Trick over Thrust is Thrust can be ashed. Doesn't come up a lot, but people will, especially in a matchup like when you play the Mirror and your opponent's just going to hard lose to Thrust and D-Barrier, they will ash this card 100% of the time if they have it. Where if you Trap Trick in a D-Barrier, it's very hard to interact with. Bring back Red Reboot, I guess. But outside of that, you can't ash Trap Trick. I guess what? Could you Bell Trap Trick? Your opponent could Lancia, I guess, in response.
You have to Lancia to stop Trap Trick.
You couldn't even Lancia if I'm doing it on your turn, because Lancia is your opponent's turn only. So it's like it's really hard to interact with Trap Trick opposed to Thrust. And Trap Trick just gets you like anything you're thrusting for, basically. It doesn't get you the Ultimate Slayer. It doesn't get you the Ultimate Slayer. It doesn't get you Feather Duster. And it doesn't search Bonfire. But I don't know that Feather Duster is even worth playing this format. It's fine. It's Feather Duster. It's basically the required side card. You play Feather Duster and 14 cards in every side deck. But I would say I prefer the Trap Tricks. But, player preference. Depends on your locals. Depends on your local meta. Our player is going to ash your Thrust. If you don't think so, then play Thrust. Thrust is the better card. It has more targets, but Trap Tricks is just harder to interact with, so I prefer it. But outside of that, I see a lot of ingenuity going on with the deck. Sharks and stuff like that. People are testing out. Rank 4 engines. I had tested Lunalight. I had tested what's the Ostinato for?
I forget which one you're talking. I know what it looks like. I just forget the name. It starts with R. It's some ridiculous.
Can't remember the name of the archetype, but that archetype churns out rank 4s pretty well. Fiendsmith. I played the Fiendsmith variant last week at locals. It's fine. Looping Lacrima to summon Agnum Day to bring back Desiree for 3 negates every turn is disgustingly broken, and if your opponent sets it up on you, you're probably not playing through it. But opening Lurie, like Lacrima, they're not. You're adding bricks to a deck that already has consistency issues. You're adding bricks to a deck that, outside of your 9 starters plus Bonfire, you're playing, you don't want to see Node, you don't want to see Plugin, you don't want to see Hole, you don't want to see Cross. You're already playing 4 engine cards that you don't want to see, and so adding more cards that you don't want to see to a deck that has consistency issues, for me, wasn't the move. I know some people have seen some real success with it, Triff won a YCS with it, and shout out to him, he's the best. Pen God, Triff Gaming the GOAT, but I really feel like you just have to, luck has to be on your side. At locals, I saw Lurie every game. Saw Lurie 4 hand traps. Normal summon Lurie, make Requiem, get Ash Blossom pass, kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But outside of that, do what you feel is right. There's a lot of room in this deck. Anything that plays around a rank 4 engine or a level 4 engine, could work. Just because it's not meta doesn't mean that it's not playable, and doesn't mean that it's not what people will be on in 2 months. You know, experimentation is the heart and soul of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! And you never know what your opponent's going to be on, and they shouldn't know what you're on. But just wanted to go over some Ryzeal stuff. I've been playing the deck for a couple of months now, testing it, and wanted to get some thoughts out there. But hopefully you guys do good at your next events. Hopefully if you see us, come up to us. We'll be at Columbus Regionals on January 11th. Hopefully you do well. Hopefully we do well. Come up, say hi, tell us who you are. You know, we love talking to people. But I guess that's it. I don't know how you end these things. What do you? Should I say something funny and catchy?
You gotta say the motto.
What's the motto?
Fuck them birds.
Fuck them birds, bro. Fuck Flaunderies.